Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new video that I've actually been meaning to make for a solid while now, but I never had the motivation to do. So you're probably looking at the title and questioning tips and tricks for the bridge? Why? Aren't you not good at bridge though? And while that isn't far from the truth, my understanding of the game is probably better than most. So I'm going to break this tips and tricks video into a specific format that I think would optimize all players to grasp as much as they can and better their gameplay in at least some way. The main reason I made this video is that all the other tips and tricks videos are absolutely awful or just not that good and teach you nothing that has actual substance to it. Most of them are made by people who don't know how to play the game themselves, and the ones that are actually good, some of whom are way better than me, instead just teach you the basic movements and block placement patterns. I know even some of the top players made teaching videos or tutorial videos, but when it comes down to it, the only good tips and tricks is genuinely just Trash Client's Hippo tutorial. And other than that, there's no really good tips and tricks video out there for the bridge. So time to make a real one at least. So in the next few seconds, I'm going to give you every other tips and tricks video for the bridge. You can Hippo, Spawn Block, Wing, Wall Run, Pristine, Tunnel, and maybe somehow they include Game Sense as one of these categories, but you don't actually need to know how and why these should be applied and where it fits into the whole bridge dynamic apparently. And did you know you can pre-gap? Thank you for watching, bye! While all these core mechanics are important, they are merely core mechanics, and they aren't the only thing I will explain in this video. And Game Sense is just a way of utilizing various core mechanics in a certain way, in certain situations, and it's not something that can be taught. So what's the point of this video then? What I want to emphasize in this video more than anything else is that each player will probably come out of this video or already has identified their own unique playstyle that works best for them when they are playing the bridge. However, I want to generalize various playstyles into categories for this video because that way it will be easier to identify what works for you. The core way of integrating this understanding is that you want to maximize your ability to use your category or playstyle while integrating other strategies that strengthens your category to where it becomes your own unique playstyle built perfectly for you. So let's do it. The first category I want to talk about is what I call the bypasser. This person does everything in their power to push through their opponents until they make it to their goal. These are generally block spammers. Now, as someone who tends to use this category, it's probably the most common, but also the most optimal to build off of. Next, there's the defensive players. These players will manage to build the most defensive setup on any map, even maps that don't really need a hippo or just aren't built for it, but they still manage to do it even on aggro maps. Third, there's the PvP based player. This playstyle characterization isn't always directed for the UHC dual sweats or the people who can PvP really well with high CPS or just the no debuff sweats, I don't know. Any player can use a PvP based playstyle and rely more on fights than block spamming if that's just more effective for them. With this basis, an ideal player would maximize their ability in their category. While this maximization is there, they would also apply the other categories into their playstyle as I explained before, and then they would make their own unique way of playing the game that is the most optimal for them. So I thought I might as well take some familiar faces and maybe some known players and put them in a little graph to show you guys how this would play out for their playstyle and gameplay. Alright, so to take my own self as an example, I have a lot more mobility, but I don't have a lot of PvP skill, which is why I rely on bypassing a lot. But now to switch it up to Skyrunner, Skyrunner has a lot of mobility. He is very good at bypassing and has a bit of PvP skill and some defensive skill, but really his heavy skill is obviously mobility. To take a Nintendo fan, for example, he has a lot less mobility, so he relies on his PvP and a little bit on the defense, but not so much, more so on his PvP to get the wins. And to take a very known player, a very skilled player, obviously this is Paris. I got some info on how she plays. Personally, I wasn't very sure. So apparently, Paris is very, very good. So obviously all the stats are up. And to take another very good player, Badamja is also very good, but relies a little bit more on the defense to get through to the win. And to take another familiar face, there's Jess. Jess is pretty strong on the defense there, not gonna lie, but everyone has their own strengths, their own weaknesses, and relying on the things that make you strong is what will get you the win at the end of the day. So that's what we're focusing on throughout this video. Also, one thing that I realized while editing this that was poorly communicated was what the meaning of defense is. When I specify on defense, it's more so focused on map setup and just the ability to structure the blocks that you place, the map, the area that you're gonna play, and just building it in a manner that will maximize your potential to get the win. And that's what I mean when I say defense. It's not just building a hippo. Who can build the hippo the fastest? That's not what defense is all about. It's more so that dynamic of being able to set up and understand the different map mechanics on the bridge. Now, within these categories, you can either be aggressive or passive in your playstyle. Even if you block spam, you can do that fairly passively. This is one of the categorizations that you have to look at in your gameplay to see what works best for you. For example, I am an aggressive bypasser, but I very rarely rely on PvP, but instead try to get trades and void kills more so than anything else. Because of my 3 CPS, I know that I'm limited in PvP. Another player that plays with the same categorization is Skyrunner or Turtleback. He is a very good aggressive bypasser. While we both fall into the same category, we play at varying degrees of skill level. He has a stronger playstyle, which is more optimized within the category, which draws the PvPer category better than my playstyle does. In contrast, there is Weavray, a UHC player I know, and a good friend of mine. He is very good at PvP, and would fall under the PvPer category. While he is good at PvP, he also butterfly right clicks so he can get really high CPS. For that reason, he has optimized his gameplay to incorporate both PvPer and bypasser. However, I'm gonna pick on him for a little bit because he's a friend of mine. He can't compete with most high level players, even though he could easily out PvP them. The reason for this is that he relies more on the aggressive bypasser playstyle, even though he is the better passive PvPer. And in that playstyle, he is better. This goes to show that you have to accept the playstyle that works best for you, rather than trying to replicate a YouTuber you see competing at a very high level. Incorporating aspects of their playstyle, however, is a very important thing to do and a good quality to have. And that's something that you should do. A lot of people will tell you, go watch YouTubers, go see how bridge players play, see how the good bridge players play, and if you do that, you'll just get better and better over time. Now let's talk about optimization, and mostly movement optimizations. In Bridge, the easy answer to how to get better is to have more CPS so that you can be more mobile. But even low CPS players are quite capable of playing against high CPS players and beating them through various optimization techniques. Obviously, the core techniques in Bridge are optimization techniques. There's the hippo, and there are some guides on YouTube on how to build fast hippos, but if you guys want a video on that, that's not my place to teach because I'm not very good with hippos and I'm pretty slow at building hippos. The hippo is one of the defensive core techniques alongside a pristine, which is built to prevent spawn blocking. You can build these defensive structures at the start of the game to give yourself an advantage later on. The wing is one of the newer strategies developed to build a strong offensive. Like the spawn block, this strategy can be used to increase your range of motion while decreasing theirs. Wings allow you to create a new path towards their goal that your opponent has to defend. They can be easily defended, but it's still a strong offensive optimization technique. Tunnels and wall running are probably two of the most self-explanatory things, but they're just something that over time and with practice you get better at. I'm sure that when I started Bridge, my wall runs were far slower than they are now, but I am able to account for obstacles a lot easier just by having wall running experience. Tunneling is a similar thing in that regard and just takes practice to watch your opponent and use that awareness to move in a manner that will maximize your ability to get to their goal. Now I want to talk about maps. Hypixel Bridge has unique maps, as you probably already know, and since Hypixel isn't updating anytime soon, it will probably stay that way, unfortunately, because Hypixel really doesn't do updates for duels or really care about it. I want to try and showcase some movement optimizations that allow for players to play better with map awareness. Even while in the cage, it is pretty well known that you can pre-gap to get a few extra absorption hearts while you are waiting to drop. Also, you can pre-bow by shooting a bow shot while falling out of your goal to set the opponent back. These are two of the most systematic aspects of the game. In addition, there is a way to bow your opponent while still in the cage. This can be done by shooting through the supposed roof of the spawn cage. Overshooting is just a way of setting back your opponent for even a sliver of a second that can increase your odds of making it to their goal first. In addition to cage mechanics, there are simple movement mechanics that you can use. The hyper jump is a parkour mechanic built for the map Hyperfrost that optimizes your ability to get from side islands to the goal. The treehouse jump is another jump that can be used to get to the backside of the map while being chased to throw your opponent off. An undergoal, while being very unlikely in general 1v1s, is a strategy that can be used to score on your opponent from underneath the map. This can be done by building 11 blocks out from underneath the map and landing the jump into the goal on maps like Hyperfrost. It is adaptable, however, to other maps such as Flora. Now let's talk knockback in the bridge. Knockback is one of the core mechanics that can make or break a game. Trade reducing is very popular in German servers, however, it can be translated to Hypixel. Movement reducing is very important and a huge part of bridge PvP. You can use strafes to movement reduce and just get better knockback. And while a lot of people will say, oh, you can't change your knockback is just either really annoying or just really good. But at the end of the day, you can change your knockback just by using these core techniques. Movement reducing is one of the easiest things to do. Having a good strafe pattern that works for you will just make you better, and it takes time and practice to get good at that. W tapping is probably one of the most known and easiest things to learn. W tapping is basically literally tapping W so that you can sprint reset. Ping is another huge thing in knockback. Ping has the biggest effect on knockback, probably by far. Timed W taps are extremely effective against high ping players. That's just a known thing. And if you take advantage of that, you can do really well and you can reduce your knockback a lot. Now let's talk practicing core mechanics. Just by practicing these core techniques and optimizing your playstyle will just make you a better player and a faster player. And this is just the simplest thing I can tell you that will just make you better over time and just make you more capable of winning.